Welcome to the 49ers Camelot Show. I'm excited to have you, and I'm really excited to have Tracy Sandler from the Fangirl Network. What's up, Tracy?
How you doing, Mark? Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. I appreciate you coming on and know that you're busy, especially because you're no longer just a regular old fan. You're actually legit now. You're a beat writer. You show up to practices. I'm really proud of you because I remember back in the day when you had just I think you were doing a podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
think you did one with Stephanie McCarroll. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I remember that. And now look at you. What's it like to start covering the team on a more personal basis?
Well, it's funny. This is actually my I'm going into my 8th season as a beat reporter, which is so crazy to me. I can't believe it. But I mean, it's been great. This is a really good team to cover. I love what I do, and yeah, I get to be there every day and really get to be in it. But it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, obviously, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I remember you doing some things where you were like get to know the player and you would ask the player certain
5 fun
questions and
facts. Yeah, we do. We
yeah.
still do it. 5 fun facts with almost everyone on the team has done it. There are some new guys this year that haven't done it yet, but I think I only have. There are very few, probably a handful, who haven't done it yet, which is so funny.
Well, that's cool. So tell me, now that you're 8 years, 8 seasons,
Hmm.
all of these press conferences, tell me the most memorable or the funniest. I asked Matt Barrows the same question, and one of his was a Jim Harbaugh story, which isn't shocking, and
Yep.
the other one was the Jim Tomsula introductory press conference, which I would imagine would be memorable. What jumps out to you?
That's so funny. And both of them, both of the gyms preceded me. So I didn't get to experience those. But I mean, there have been so many that jump out, but one of them is Richard Sherman, really his introductory press conference. We had an introductory phone call with Richard Sherman, and the sound wasn't great, and there was like a dog barking in the background, and all these things. Then we had this introductory press conference with him, and he was fantastic. So that one jumps out. Last year during OTAs, I remember during a George Kittle press conference, for some reason, my phone felt that it would be fun to start just playing ads. And so we had fun with that, and George kept being like, Tracy, my God. But that one was a lot of fun. So I know there have been like so many over the years. But see, Kyle's great. You don't get like necessarily those like Jim Harbaugh ones. But listen, I was on the infamous Zoom before the draft for the I don't know who's going to be alive on Sunday. And as soon as he said it, I thought, oh, that's going to be a thing. So I was
That's
on that
funny.
Zoom for that. So there have been a lot of them, but it's been a good run. It's been a lot of fun, as I said earlier.
Yeah, Matt's Jim Harbaugh story was a presser that he wasn't even supposed to be at. I think that one of the coordinators was supposed to speak, and
Mhm.
he said that Harbaugh came in and said AJ Jenkins was a good receiver in college and he will continue to be a good receiver. And that was kind of it. And it was in that time where I guess people were criticizing the AJ Jenkins pick, but we all know how that ended. So that was
We
kind of
do.
a funny Harbaugh like thing. Speaking of which, I was kind of jealous of you back when they fired Jim Harbaugh. I was jealous because I wanted him to still be my coach, but you
Mhm.
got to have him continue to be your coach just on a different team. And so I'm sure that's a lot of fun. I'm sure he still does the khakis and the who's got it better than us stuff like that. And he still do that?
Oh, he sure does. He's still Jim Harbaugh. The Who's Got It Better Than Us. I haven't heard him do it in a while, but that doesn't mean he doesn't do it. But he's still got the khakis. You know, he was at Levi Stadium earlier this season. They honored that 2012 team,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, that's my coach, and you know, I really get to be a fan. I love anybody who follows me, anybody who knows me knows that I love my Michigan Wolverines. So I still have I still have my coach, and you know, it's changed over the years. Obviously, I started as a 49ers fan, but now I'm a reporter. So it's kind of a different thing. But when it comes to Michigan, when it comes to the Dodgers, I'm such a diehard fan. So I love still having Jim Harbaugh in my life.
That's good. The fangirl never dies.
Yes.
She's always still there. So, speaking of Jim Harbaugh
Mhm.
and Michigan Wolverines, the 49ers drafted two of Harbaugh's players
Yeah.
in Ronnie Bell and Jake Moody. Did you manifest this? I mean, because I'm picturing you slipping Michigan draft reports and things like that under Kyle Shanahan's door or something like that. Did you make this happen?
I mean, I do like to take credit for Jake Moody, even though I definitely had nothing to do with it. But I did tweet, talk about on my podcast, and on every radio show, talked about Jake Moody and how he was the guy and they needed a kicker. I always said, even before they traded up, but to get, and they had to obviously end up getting Jair Brown first. I always said they were going to take him at 99. I always thought that was going to be the case because I knew that Kyle Shanahan has not had to worry about a kicker the last several years. He doesn't
Yep.
like thinking about kickers. And this was the guy. And I knew Jake Moody was the guy. Money Moody, Moody Magic, whatever you want to call him. So I do feel like with Jake Moody, I kind of did manifest it because I talked about it so much. And then with Ronnie Bell, it's funny. I thought that Ronnie Bell was one they could draft, or Luke Schoonmaker was one they could draft. So I definitely talked about that. And I think Ronnie Bell could end up being a really sneaky good draft pick. And I know he's a late round pick, and it's going to be hard for those late round picks to make this team. But Ronnie Bell was coming off an ACL injury this last year. Before that, I mean, he was the man. He was just like the guy in that offense. And then coming off his ACL injury, he had some really big moments this season. He impressed at rookie minicamp. He's impressed some at OTAs. So I actually think he may end up being a really sneaky good pick for the 49ers. I know Jake Moody is going to be everything we want him to be and more. But I really think Ronnie Bell is going to make this team. I know we're very early on, miles to go before they hit the 53, but I think this is a very good pick for San Francisco.
Do you see him like as a slot receiver? I mean, would he be a good slot? Because really, Kyle Shanahan's not had that since 2017.
That is true. I think he would be. I think he could be a really good punt returner who could come in on the slot. And I think the thing with Ronnie Bell this year is receiver becomes kind of a sneaky need. Not really yet, but Juwan Jennings on a 1-year deal. He's a restricted free agent next year. Ray McLeod is on a 1-year deal. So I think it becomes kind of a sneaky place where he could come on in. But yes, I definitely think he could come in the slot. Like I said, I think he could be a punt returner. I just, we'll see how he does in training camp in the preseason, because sometimes you don't want to cut the guy. And this was the case with Brock Purdy. And they said this at the time, we don't want to cut the guy because if you cut him, there's no guarantee you're getting him on the practice squad. And they may not want someone else to get Ronnie Bell. And I think they were pretty excited about drafting him. So, but yes, that is where I see him fitting in. And he's been impressive thus far.
I actually think he's going to make the team, and partly because I don't think that we know what they have yet in Danny Gray. And
Correct.
so
and you know what? I forgot to even mention Danny Gray. So,
and they play a different style, of course, but I liked that pick. I liked the Ronnie Bell pick. I actually liked the Jake Moody pick as well. I didn't have a problem with it being in the 3rd round. I did kind of raise my eyebrows just because I knew that there were going to be people on Twitter who were just going to lose it. But I didn't have a problem with that. My only concern is this team expects to be playing for championships. Can Jake Moody handle that kind of NFL pressure? Because rookie kickers don't have a great track record.
Oh, he'll be fine. Jake Moody is not your average rookie kicker. That's for sure. I mean, what did Harbaugh said to Matt Barrows? Death, taxes, and Jake Moody. And he has said that before. And they all say he has ice in his veins. I mean, he's just not your average rookie kicker. And the thing is with the 3rd round, and yes, obviously I wanted them to pick Jake Moody. I talked about it. He was going to go at 99. But the thing is, they needed a kicker. We saw the Cowboys take a kicker very early in the 4th round. He wasn't going to be there if they didn't get him in the 3rd. And this is a team that's pretty set. We just talked about Ronnie Bell and how it's going to be harder for those late round picks to make the team. And that's because this is a team that's pretty set. So it's a team that could afford to use that pick in their one glaring area of need that they need a starter. And that was Jake Moody. So, but he really is not your average rookie kicker. And he's kind of been through it. He came in, he was going to be a big deal. He got replaced and he had a game where I think he missed 3 kicks in a row. He got his job back and he's had to play He's had to play for Jim Harbaugh. He's had to play in high pressure situations, and he's done well. So I don't think there's anything to worry about in Jake Moody.
That's good to hear. I have heard Matt Mayoko say on multiple occasions that no rookie is going to impact the 49ers season more than Jake Moody, one way or another. But I like the kick, and so I'm hoping for good things. What jumped out at you at minicamp? Were there a couple of things that maybe a player you were impressed with, or somebody you weren't as impressed with? What jumped out?
Can you say that one more time? You broke up for a second. I'm sorry, Mark.
What jumped out at you during the mandatory minicamp? Was there a player that impressed, or one that didn't impress? What jumped out to you?
Well, I think we won't talk quarterback because that's everybody, of course, wants. We've been talking about. But I actually will say that I thought that Trey Lance. I would agree with George Kittle. I think that Trey Lance did look a lot better than he did last year. So I think that's something that certainly jumped out. But there were Isaiah Oliver was impressive. I think Diamador Lenore continues to impress. He continues to be aggressive. He continues to be who they thought he would be, who they want him to be. Saw Ambry Thomas get some extra playing time. Mooney Ward was doing individuals and running on the side, but he wasn't doing team drills. And I think Ambry Thomas, I saw something a little bit different in him than maybe I did last year. I'm not going to say there's anybody who didn't impress me. I mean, minicamp is it's so hard to know really anything from OTAs and minicamp. But I would say Lenore, Ambry Thomas, Isaiah Oliver, and of course, Brandon Ayuk just was super impressive all the way around. And I think Deebo Samuel said it best. You can't guard that boy in a phone booth right now, but he was just incredible. You mentioned Danny Gray. I think we might see something a little more from Danny Gray, but Brandon Ayuk stood out above and beyond, but that may be one of the more obvious ones. And so I would say the corners would be maybe the less obvious ones.
Well, speaking of Brandon Ayuk, everybody's talked about how great he looked. He looked great last year. He had a really good season. Nick Bosa is about to become probably the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. My concern is, are the 49ers going to be able to keep, when it's time to pray, to pray, we'll pray that they can keep Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. When it comes time to pay Ayuk, are they going to be able to keep both of those guys?
That remains to be seen. And it's a decision they may have to make next year. They probably won't have to make it for 2 more years. But they very well may have to make a choice. I don't think originally I kind of thought it would be next year. I don't think it's going to be next year. I think it's 2 years down the road, and then they might have to make a choice. But 2 years down the road, there are going to be a lot of things that go on in this team where they're going to have to make choices, because I've been pretty open. I talk about this on my pod a lot. Like, they've got about a 2-year window, I would say, a 1 to 2 year window before things start changing. So I don't know, to be honest with you. I think right now it's a little bit hard to tell. We have I think next season is going to be really important for Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. But thus far, Brandon Ayuk has shown that he is very durable. He's gotten better and better and better. He said he's getting ready to take off. He just had a 1,000-yard season, so can't wait to see what that looks like. But they may have to make tough decisions, and they've had to make them in the past. I just think it's going to be something that you don't really have to worry about for 2 more years.
If you had to make the choice, if you're John Lynch and you or Kyle Shanahan, and you had to make the choice, we've got to get rid of Deebo or we have to get rid of Brandon Ayuk, who are you keeping?
Oh, there's a reason I am not Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. I think at this moment in time, in June of 2023, so I would like to preface it that we have a whole season ahead of us. I also, but before I give my answer, I want to talk a minute about Deebo Samuel and how open he was with us last week, how open he was about his season last year. He felt that the offseason stuff last year was a distraction. He said his words, my season was awful, that he would never put anything like that on tape again. So I think I want to preface all of that. But if we're just going to go today, June 2023, I think it would be Ayuk, because he's proven to be more durable, because he's a true wide receiver, and because Christian McCaffrey changes things somewhat in that regard. I would think that's a very difficult decision to make. And I do think we are going to see a very different Debo Samuel next year. I think we're going to see more of like the Debo Samuel we saw in 2021. And so that could change things, but I'm glad I'm not the one making those decisions. I just will write about it when they make it.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. But I'm with you. I'm probably going Ayuk, and partly because the way that Debo plays, I'm not sure how long he'll be able to play that way. But let me ask you this: is Brock Purdy going to be ready for Week 1? I'm
Sure
having
sounds like it.
I'm having a hard time believing that he's gonna be ready to start in Pittsburgh against that defense Week 1. Where are you at on that?
I mean, it sounds like it. We haven't seen him throw, obviously. So, but it sounds like he is very much on schedule, maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule. If you'd asked me this 2 months ago, even a month ago, a month and a half ago, I would have said probably not, and that I would
Mhm.
expect to see him in week 2 or 3. But it sounds like he is very much on schedule, and they're pretty open about it too, which makes me think he really is very much on schedule. There's not too much of we don't know, but I mean, Kyle Shanahan said last week, I know everybody wants an update. I don't really have one, but he has said that they expect him to be ready for week 1. And it sounds like he will be. Everything, knock wood, everywhere has gone according to plan. So it sounds like he will be, which is somewhat not funny, haha, but ironic with all the discourse and the who's it going to be, and will it be Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, and this one, that one, and the other. And ultimately, I think Brock Purdy is going to start week 1 in Pittsburgh.
All right. So there's about 6 weeks or so until training camp. What do you think non-quarterback storylines?
Mm-hmm.
Because we could flood the
Yeah.
whole internet with those. What are you expecting will be some of the biggest storylines during training camp?
Well, I think curious to see, and this is just my stuff, so I can't speak for everybody, but I think the corners that I mentioned earlier, I think
Mhm.
are a big storyline because I think for Ambry Thomas, this is a really important offseason. He and Deommodore Lenoir's rookie seasons went in different directions, and then went again in different directions in their second year. He's a 3rd-round pick who I think the 49ers were counting on to be a big part of this team. So this becomes a pretty big offseason and preseason for him. I'm very curious to see what happens with Ty Davis Price. What does his offseason look like? What does his training camp look like? What does his preseason look like? Elijah Mitchell, how does he come back? Obviously, Elijah Mitchell is incredibly talented. He's had trouble staying healthy, which anybody who listens to me knows is like my least favorite narrative because it is football, but he still has had problems staying healthy. So Jordan Mason and Ty Davis Price become really big parts of that running back room, and curious to see kind of what happens there. Javon Hargrave with this defensive line, that's just going to be cool to watch. I think that's more of a season storyline. I don't know if it's so much of a storyline as I think they just became the best defensive line in the league, and it's not even close, but it's going to be fun to see him. And then on that line, though, who is the edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa? Can Drake Jackson take the leap that they want him to take? And he's definitely been in the weight room, and he's put on weight, which is something they wanted to do, and he's been working hard, but can he make that leap to be that guy? And that really remains to be seen. So those are the big ones that jump out at me. But I think Drake Jackson is a big one. That is a huge storyline because they expect good things from him, and they expect big things from him. And he had a lot of work to do this offseason.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge one. That might be the biggest one, in my opinion,
Yeah.
of the non-quarterback storylines. I think the running back, like you mentioned, that's sneaky big because I think that they have to find somebody, whether it's Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason or Ty Davis Price, somebody has to take some of the load off of Christian McCaffrey. I just think he got dinged up way too much last season. And if he has to carry that kind of load again, I'm concerned that because he just plays a brutal position. So hopefully somebody's going to step up.
Well,
As
I
we
would
go,
agree on
go
that
ahead.
really quick. I would even take it a step further because I think Elijah Mitchell does take that load off Christian McCaffrey, but someone also has to take the load off Elijah Mitchell. And that's how you keep both of those guys healthy. So that's kind of my feeling on that
Yeah.
is that there are a few people in that running back room that's got to take a lot of people. But I think Elijah Mitchell does do that if he can stay healthy. But part of the way you keep him healthy is having some of these other guys perform.
Yeah, it's probably a hard line for Kyle Shanahan to toe because on one hand, you want a more balanced approach as far as having different running backs carrying the load, but at the same time, you've got this all-world talent that you want on the field every chance you can get in McCaffrey. So that's tough. As we go into training camp, what are your concerns for this team?
I mean, I think with honestly, this team is pretty put together. I mean, there aren't a ton of concerns. I think if we're gonna pick some, Colt McKivitz, the heir apparent at right tackle, remains to be seen how he is as an everyday starter, every snap starter at that position. So I think that becomes an important one. They need Spencer Burford, who played really well last year as a rookie. They need him to take that next step in his second season. So that O-line, of course, becomes really important, especially in keeping their quarterbacks healthy, which, as we know, has been a problem. And that's not on the O-line by any means, but it's not on anybody, but that is something that they need to be able to do. So I think that becomes a concern. I think who is on the other side, that line is so strong, but who is on that other side of Bosa? And then I think, at linebacker, there's no concern, but you had a trio the last couple of years. It was probably the best linebacker trio in the league by far. Azeez Al-Shaair, as well he should, goes on to the Titans to be a starter. So now you have Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw. Drake Greenlaw is another one that tends to get a little bit dinged up.
Yeah.
They have someone that can come in. Can D. Winters be that guy? Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Burks, can he come in? Who can kind of come in and be that third linebacker when they need him to be? So none of these, the thing is, again, this team is pretty ready to go and in theory is built. So there aren't tons of areas of concern, so to speak, but I think those are areas to watch and keep an eye on.
Yeah, good answer. Do you think that this team is as good? I think that they're better than they were this time last year, but are they as good right now as they were heading into the NFC Championship game?
Oh, yes. I mean, I do think that they are. I mean, granted, they lost a lot of players in free agency, which of course happened. But yes, I think they are as good heading into the NFC Championship game. And partly because you're going to have Brock Purdy now, who started a number of games, who's, shown what he can do. Javon Hargrave makes a really big difference for them. Diamador Lenore, I think, is only going to get better. So yes, I do think they're as good as they were heading into the NFC Championship game, but we won't really know until they start playing in September.
Yeah. One last question, and this is the most important one.
Oh, no pressure.
Who is your favorite 49ers beat writer other than yourself?
Oh, I cannot answer that question. You're going to get me in trouble. You're going to get me in very, very big trouble. So I
won't tell anybody.
Well, yeah, no, I cannot. But I will say this. We have a really good group. And we're really lucky. We all get along really well. We hang out on the road. We do dinners together all the time. It's a fun beat. It's a funny beat. Barros and I talk TV. We love talking about TV. Whenever he's on the podcast, it's 49ers and then whatever the hot show of the moment is. So we have a lot of fun with that. Mayoko has been a mentor to me. I mean, Nick is a close friend. Cam, David, Jen, everybody. It's such a great Brancher. Brancher's the best. Josh Dubois was there all the time. It's a really hard one. Kawakami, fantastic. So I can't pick a favorite, but I'm lucky to be on such a great beat. And this is the only beat I've ever been on. And so my understanding is that not every beat has people who get along so well and really love working together. And we're lucky. I mean, we have a lot of fun in that workroom. And let me tell you, sitting in a media workroom for 3 days of the draft is not easy. And we really have a good time.
I bet. Well, yeah, 49ers fans are really fortunate to have so many great people covering the team. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for being here. Tell us where we can find you.
So I'm on Twitter at Tracy FGSN. I'm on Instagram at Tracy Sandler. All of my content, all of our Fangirl content is fgsn.com. And make sure to subscribe to the Tracy Sandler Show.
Yes, and we're really proud of you and all the things that
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
That's really
So
sweet.
thank you again for joining me, and thank you for watching the 49ers Camelot Show. Go check out what Tracy's doing, and while you're at it, subscribe to the 49ers Camelot Show so that we can keep bringing you great guests like this. Thanks so much for joining us.